And it's a Thank God Friday edition of Morning Moves here at the FMDQ studios. I am Bosin Omofai. Welcome.
And I am Melissa Enoch here on the show. I hope you've all had a great week so far as we head into the final weekend in August.
Yes, it's been a very great week so far. Thank you, Melissa. Let's start the show with news now from South Africa, where the country's producer price inflation index rose to 1.5% year-on-year in the month of July. That's higher than 0.6% in the month of June. Data released by the Statistics Office shows that the manufacturing inflation reading climbed 0.7% on a monthly basis in South Africa last month. That was a notable speed up in wholesale.
Second being education and skills development, where we enhance education outcomes and value addition life skills that ensures inclusive and equitable quality education. And the third is economic empowerment, where we promote sustainable economic growth and transform livelihoods. And we also focus on enabling giving, which speaks about our implementation model. We strengthen partnerships for sustainable community development. Outside, we have had about 10 different booths who represent the partners that we have worked with. Over the 5 years, I&M Foundation has partnered with more than 35 different organizations. We have 10 of them outside there. Please take a chance and just go through those booths, engage with them, and have a feel of the work that I&M Foundation has done across these different pillars. 5 years ago, we set out with a bold vision to be more than just a corporate entity, but to be a catalyst for change. And guided by our vision to see communities whose physical, social, and economic environment have been positively impacted as a result of our partnerships.
In earnings news, the Bank of Baroda, Kenya, has released its first half 2025 earnings, showing a 22.96% jump in net profit to 2.51 billion shillings. Pre-tax profit at 3.58 billion shillings was driven by a 20.25% upside in net interest income to 4.5 billion shillings. The Bank of Baroda, Kenya, says its loans and advances dipped 16.94% in the period under review to 4.62 billion shillings, while customer deposits also fell by 0.50%. Earnings per share was reported at 25.34 Kenyan shillings, the bank says. In Ethiopia, this Thursday, the country's investment holdings company and the Dangote Industries of Nigeria signed a $2.5 billion investment paper. The deal was to build a 3 million metric tons of urea fertilizer in the second most populous African economy. The investment agreement was the first of such deal by a Nigerian company since 2025 started, but the second for Dangote, whose cement plant has been operating in Ethiopia for nearly 10 years. Finally, a global cybersecurity company known as Kaspersky says there were 42.4 million web attacks in sub-Saharan Africa in the first 6 months of 2025. In a data released this week, Kaspersky added that some 95.6 million on-device attacks were detected, while SSA recorded more than a double increase in spyware. In Nigeria, the cybersecurity company says it blocked more than 1.46 million online attack attempts on users in Nigeria in the first half of the year. Kaspersky's analysis shows a 66% increase in password stealers in Nigeria in January to June, while 53% in spyware attacks were blocked. I am Melissa Enoch, and that has been your news now. Stick around for our markets around just after the break with Bosing standing by at the ticker tape room.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to Money Moves here from FMDQ Studios in Lagos. Of course, today, the one-month program of the 2025 FMDQ Summer Camp for primary and secondary school students came to a final close just a few hours ago before we came live here on the show. And I had the opportunity to sit with 3 of those students who have spent the last 1 month within this premises on a daily basis learning about financial inclusion, the financial markets, how to trade products, and they spoke enthusiastically about the wealth of information about the markets that they've learned from FMDQ. That interview is exclusive here on Frontier Africa Reports, and you can watch that online. Go to www.frontierafricareports.com, and of course you can watch that also on our YouTube, and we'll share it also on across all our social media platforms. It's the end of the 2025 summer camp, so we'll just wait to see the students back here for next year. Now, as we go into the weekend, let's bring on the markets. A very gentle gains across many of the African markets. No such a very big jump as we see the final trading day of the month of August, and of course the second month in the third quarter of the year. So if we start from the top, we see the Nigerian stock market was down 0.19%. That adjustment started around midweek and is continuing to today until Monday, the 1st of September. Of course, the BRVM moved about just about 0.1%. The Nairobi stock market has one of the biggest gain in the week today, 0.32%, on the back of some of the earnings from the Nairobi stock market, including the Nairobi Securities Exchange itself, that reported very robust earnings on Thursday, reporting operating profit of 177% for the first 6 months of this year under the leadership of the new CEO, Frank Mweti. The Egyptian markets closed Thursday for the week until Sunday, when the stock market in Cairo will resume. In Casablanca, the market is 0.19% in the red today. The GS in South Africa, the biggest exchange on the continent, down by 0.1%. Zimbabwe down by 0.28%. The Semdex in Mauritius, on the island of Mauritius, was 0.14% better. So a very gentle finishing line across the stock market in Africa, just to balance the month, and then moved on to September, a very crunching month when it comes to investment and rate decision by central banks around the world. Let's move on and check into the treasury space with South Africa's 10-year paper printing 9.615% today, and that's about 0.1% in the green territory. The Kenyan market saw the 10-year paper printing 13.326 according to investing.com, 12:43 GMT. 1.36%, sharply lower. That's some good news there for Kenya, by the way. But if you look into the currencies, it's just going to move this on very quickly. It's been a weak Friday for the South African rand on the dollar. The rand finished 17.63 late Thursday. Today it's trading around 17.73, down by 0.16%. The Nigerian currency, 0.11% on the dollar, 1,536. The Egyptian pound trading 14.857. That's a slightly move down from around 49 to the greenback. The Kenyan shilling, 129.20. Sitting largely unchanged for the final day of the month. And Mauritius, and of course the Moroccan dinar, that's the MAD, printing 0.23% on the US dollar. That's been the currency story for today. Of course, some of the markets still continue trading till a couple of hours more as we check the various regions on the continent. Let me move into the commodity space. What is the data deck looking like? Starting with energy prices, down by 0.51% for the London Brent. The US WTI 0.29%. All eyes on September meeting by OPEC plus. The GMMC meeting will precede that of the bigger OPEC meeting. Russia will be in focus with the war in Ukraine as well. We'll also consider the decision by OPEC plus, the big 8, Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and others, Kazakhstan, to bring additional 548,000 barrels per day back into the market in September. That will finally unwind the 2.2 million barrels per day that OPEC has been bringing back to the market. Will there be a glut in the market as we move out of the summer season into the winter season around the northern hemisphere? All of this will be in focus for the month of September. Keep an eye on that. It's a Friday, so let's have a TGIF here. Let's move on. Check into the metal space. Gold lost a little bit of its shine today, 0.04%, around 12:47 GMT when we put this data together, 3,472.8 an ounce. Then you have copper printing at 450. That's up by roughly 1%. Let's finish off, as always, around the soft commodities. Cocoa prices sharply lower, 1.36%. Of course, there is a bit of a demand issue here because cocoa prices is moving per metric ton very strongly, again, because of the pressure that we're seeing from the President Trump's tariff. And of course, the weather conditions around some of the biggest producers, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. If we tie that very closely to the price of coffee, which is around $380.40, that's highly elevated from where we finished off on Thursday evening. Of course, Brazil is going through a frost season, so that is impacting cocoa bean, one of the biggest producers of Arabica coffee. Vietnam has a bit of a weather, but of course, that's for Robusta coffee. So folks are beginning to see whether they can drink some locally produced coffee, as it were, and try to save off what you call President Trump's tariff around coffee and other imports into the U.S. You have supply issue in terms of inventory in the U.S. as well. So everyone is looking at tariff issues, then consider how much that will flow into what you call a cup of coffee. So the coffee price is highly elevated as we finish the month of August, $380.40, around 12:49 GMT. What else do I have? Palm oil, $1,035. That's a slightly deceleration from $1,041 we saw throughout this week as oil prices, palm oil prices remain elevated. Again, soy oil prices, India demand, of course, production also out of Malaysia and Malaysia's demand as well, and the exports that this particular number one palm oil producer has into the global market. They've fixed in, they also consider the price of the US dollar when you make all these market numbers. So that's where we are tonight, as well as we go into the weekend here in Lagos, about almost 5 p.m. Nigerian time. We wish everyone a very great weekend. And remember, don't forget that interview on the FMDQ 2025 summer camp. You want to see how we're making moves, how this movement in the markets and all that, getting them into the minds of the youngsters. And that's what the summer camp was all about. And that's the finishing line for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching the show. From me and the rest of my team here at the FMDQ studios in Lagos, have a great weekend and see you back on the 1st of September.